This is a Fleet Europe interview hosted by Steven Schuss, the head of strategic relations at Nexus Communication. Today's topic, how vehicle leasing in Turkey is navigating change and growth. Introducing today's guest, Özarslan Tangün, president of TOKKDER. Enjoy the interview.
So, we are here with the president of the Turkish Leasing and Rental Association. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for hosting me.
I have a couple of questions. I wanted to start with a little bit about the market evolution. If we look at operational leasing and also daily rental in Turkey, what can you share in terms of evolution, in terms of figures, based on the data that you have?
Sure. Well, first of all, let me start with saying, Turkey is a good-sized country. 86 million people. We also have significant tourism. We have more than 60 million tourists, inbound tourists coming to Turkey. So this is a really good-sized country. And if you look at the leasing and rental business in Turkey, we think there is significant upside potential to it. So let me share a couple numbers with you. On the operational leasing side, the latest numbers that we put out, we have a quarterly report that comes out both for operational leasing and daily rental. It was 234,000 on rent, basically. So on the fleet, 234,000 on the operational leasing side, and about 138,000 on the daily rental side. And what we try to do is we try to look at references and gauge the potential and what's happening. I can share two numbers with you. One, in terms of the operational leasing, these numbers were more in the peak for our industry, for our country, was 367,000. So obviously, COVID had a big impact. And then after COVID, we never recovered and went back to the old figures. Mm-hmm. And when we look at these numbers, when we look at the cars, the fleet that's used for business purposes, and what percentage of that fleet is leased or through operational leasing, we see roughly around 10%. And this number, if you compare to anywhere in Europe, it's almost 1/5, 1/6 of what it is. Mostly the numbers are 50 to 60% versus 10% in Turkey. So we really think there is a big opportunity there. On the other side, on the rental side, when we look at per capita spending and per capita rental, we see that Turkey compared to similar countries, I'm not comparing it to overall Europe or US, where the numbers are much higher, we see 5 to 6 times more per capita spending. So in Turkey, in terms of daily rental, we think there's opportunity to grow this market to at least 5-fold versus where we are today. The same thing is true for operational leasing mm-hmm. market.
Okay. I've been hearing, and you are confirming it, that in recent years, let's say the portion of operational leasing in Turkey has been shrinking. Has this to do with the economic pressure, with financial volatility, with high inflation rate, or has it also to do with perhaps the attitude of the Turkish fleet customer that is perhaps not as risk averse or that is not as educated when it comes to leasing and the advantages of outsourcing your management?
All of the above. I mean, you basically listed really well. If you look at last year, in 2025, the shrinkage was around 7.5%, roughly 8%, both for operational leasing and daily rental. And obviously, Turkey's economy is a very volatile economy. I mean, in the last 3 years, we're in this disinflation mode, which took us from 60, 70% inflation to 30% inflation. And interest rates are very high, and they're very volatile, and that has a big impact on the whole industry. So obviously, the costs go up with car costs and interest rates mm-hmm. as the biggest two factors. But to your point, there's also the tendency. This is just maybe more cultural, not just companies, but also individuals as well. They like to own assets. I mean, the world is changing. It's been changing significantly, and it's going to accelerate, and this change will accelerate. But I think COVID had confused people a little bit, because during COVID, we initially started with supply problems, which created increases in prices. So the asset prices have appreciated above normal, and this went on almost for 3 years. So a lot of corporations felt like, why are we renting? I mean, if leasing, if we own this car, it would have gone up, in value, we're wasting our money, that type of stuff. And I think that had a negative impact on the psyche, and that in combination with overall cultural approach of, owning an asset. I mean, in Turkey, the cars are seen as an investment vehicle. And it's not true. I mean, it's not true anywhere in the world. No. These are depreciating assets. And for corporations, as you know, there are a lot of hidden costs.
Yes.
So the fleet companies buy these cars much cheaper. They can sell them at much better prices because they do it on volume, very efficiently, professionally. They maintain these cars at much lower cost. And they also know how to use risk management tools. A lot of companies, this is not their priority. I mean, they need to focus on their own business and utilize their capital in that business. And to your point, I truly believe from a risk management point of view, we need to educate the Turkish customer much more. Okay. Because that side, when you look at the balance sheets in Turkey, liquidity, risk management seems to be not the number one priority.
What is the number one priority?
I mean, people look at profitability, and that could be misleading sometimes. In this example, I buy a car for 1 million lira, I sell it for 1.2 million lira. Well, are you really profiting from this? Because you could have, what are the alternatives, ways to invest your money in your business or in other instruments, versus this depreciating asset. So I think we need to do a better job educating the customers. I think that will help. And I think as they experience this normalization from the COVID years, I think we're going to see increased interest in leasing and rental versus owning the car.
Okay. Can you also predict when or how long it will take to grow the operational leasing and daily rental market? Will this already be happening in 2026, 2027, or do you think it will take a little bit longer?
Honestly, our initial thoughts at the beginning of this year was that 2026 is the year that we're going to see growth. And there are many reasons for it. But what has happened with this Iran war is creating more volatility. I mean, we're already in a very uncertain world. It's hard to predict, so on and so forth. But this has created significant volatility. Just to give you an example, interest rates in Turkey, Turkish asset interest rates have gone up 8 points. So, 8 full points just in the last 2 weeks. So obviously this has significant impact on the cost structure and so on and so forth. And we could, oil prices, very volatile. We don't know where it's going to end up. We know that it's not going to be what was predicted at the beginning of the year. So it's going to be higher, which means more current account deficit for Turkey because we are, an exporter of energy, and also more inflation, cost pressures on all our customers as well. And that means the cost of everything, leasing included in that, will go up. So honestly, I was optimistic. We were predicting a growth this year. We're not sure now. Okay. And it'll depend on how long this war lasts. And the same thing for daily rental. Tourism is a huge part of our business, especially inbound, tourists coming from outside the country. And we don't know how this is going to be affected. If there's a negative impact on that, I think we won't see a growth, unfortunately.
Okay. Something that is probably also uncertain is the topic around electrification and EV uptake in Turkey. and with that also the introduction of more flexible mobility solutions.
Yes.
Do you see a future for both?
I do. I think our opinion on that is electrification is unavoidable. It's going to happen. But it's one thing to satisfy demand. It's another thing to force demand
Exactly.
on manufacturers and leasing companies and so on. As you know, Europe has kind of taken the second round, and it's not sustainable in my opinion. The issue is this: you're buying an asset, whether it's a lease company or individuals or so on and so forth. You need to have a good sense as to what the residual value could be. And what happens with the electric cars is batteries are a huge part of the cost. And the battery technology is evolving, changing very rapidly. So now we're talking maybe in 2 years, maybe in less time, we're going to have 1,000 to 1,200 kilometer range that could be charged in less than 5 minutes. So I think this will happen. But once this happens, I think then the adoption rates are going to go up significantly. You're not going to force people, because today, you get a car that goes 600 kilometers, 500 kilometers. Well, and then it takes, if it's an AC charger, 6 hours to charge. If it's a DC, maybe an hour, so on and so forth. So it's not the same experience. But when we get that experience, what's going to happen to the cars that we own today? Their residual values are going to be significantly negatively impacted. So I think because of this reason, what we experience, what we see is that because of incentives, the new car sales have gone up. In Turkey, the same way, it's almost 18% of new car sales in Turkey is electric, which is a big number. I mean, it's as big as Europe and bigger than US. But when you look at the fleets, for example, in operational leasing, it's 2.4% of the fleet. In daily rental, it's about the same, 2.6%. Because operationally, it's much tougher, and the residual value is a big question mark.
Yeah.
In terms of the second part of your question, I think that we're seeing huge tectonic shifts in the way the mobility solutions are happening. And I think it's tied to a couple things. Obviously, electrification is very important. It will happen. Along with that, connected car is happening. And the next step, which is already happening, is the autonomous car.
Indeed.
And when you get to that stage, you're talking about huge changes. I think this is going to be huge changes for everybody. Overall, for our industry in a major way, for the automotive industry, for urban planning, energy planning, technology, IT, software, so on and so forth. So mobility is a very core piece, and we're going towards these phases where we're going to end up with more data, more AI use, and then autonomous vehicles. But before that, more connected vehicles, where you can create better solutions for the customers. So it's definitely happening, and it will continue to happen, and Turkey will definitely experience this, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Great meeting with you.
Likewise.
Thank you.